I think you're feeling now pretty inadequate. Now you're 26. And you haven't made Magnolia.
Well, at 26, he made Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
And he makes Magnolia when he's 28 and 29.
I'm 40 next year, so what kind of hope is that for me?
You know,
Exactly,
Woody
we might as
Allen
well.
made Annie Hall at 40,
But
didn't
he'd
he?
made other films before that.
Yeah, he had.
I think we might as well just give up.
Hey guys, you're listening to episode 117 of Flixwatcher Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast. Today we are joined by Louisa.
Hello.
And Jake.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be talking about Hard 8 with Helen,
Hello.
as always.
Fan of the show? Make sure you follow us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod. Visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings and hit subscribe wherever you find your podcasts.
Just to let you know, guys, all films were available on Netflix UK at the time of recording. Please note, there will be some bad language and there will be spoilers.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast. Joining us today we have Jake and Louisa. If you would like to introduce yourselves and tell the listeners a little bit more about your podcast and work that you do.
Sure. So I work for Random Acts, which is Channel 4's short film art strand. So a lot of kind of 4 to 5 minute strange things that generally play at midnight when people come back from the pub and aren't really sure whether they watched it or dreamed it. That's what I do most of the time. But in my pod world, I host a show all about Studio Ghibli. I had sadly never seen a Studio Ghibli film until about 12 months ago, and my colleague made me remedy that by watching them all along with him and learning all about them one film at a time. And it's been a wonderful journey, and we're about 2/3 of the way through all of their films. The show is called Ghibliotheque.
And how many Studio Ghibli films are there?
We've only got 24, so it's a very limited series.
Yeah.
So we do this on every episode. So if anyone's got any ideas about what we could do afterwards, because we do enjoy it.
But it's still, it's quite prolific for one studio to have made that many films of a specific type, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting because no other studio really gets treated in a way like a genre, like they do. You've almost got that with A24. They release an enormous variety of films, but they have a kind of cult-like phenomena around them, which Studio Ghibli also garners. But they do kind of act as a realm amongst themselves, and all of the films, bar a few, do seem to operate all within the same kind of sphere. And
a lot of them have the very same, you could take one still of a film you've never seen but go, oh, that's a Studio Ghibli film.
Yeah, or generally that would probably be a Miyazaki film.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So that's Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle. These are the popular ones that people recognize.
But like The Tale of Princess Kaguya would look different to those kind of standards. But it's good that there is like similar aesthetic that does kind of run through. But when you said that about A24, I think a modern one which might be kind of similar would be like a Blumhouse.
Yeah, very
films.
true.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's perhaps got as much of a love to it as Studio Ghibli does.
Well, maybe the next year could be Blumhouse, and then there'll be an ongoing.
I'd have to really cross a horror threshold because that's not my thing. So if someone can force me into watching a load of Blumhouse, maybe that's an opportunity for a new podcast.
Well, as we record this, Midsummer is out, and I'm always like teetering because everyone says it's amazing, but also I'm such a big scaredy cat.
So you've not seen it yet?
I've not seen it.
It's not that scary.
I'm going tomorrow, so no spoilers. No spoilers at all.
We're absolutely not going to spoil. And who are you?
Okay, so I'm Louisa, and I am the co-founder and director of Girls on Tops, and we are a t-shirt celebration of women in film. You've probably seen our t-shirts if you go to any sort of cinema in and around London. They're white with black or red or gold names of various women in the film industry.
I love how you said we've probably seen your stuff.
Oh no,
it's so prolific now, isn't it?
Within a certain realm.
Yeah.
Within a certain kind of, not person, but we're not a cult.
Going back to Midsummer.
But, there are 4 people in this room, and two of which are wearing a t-shirt. And I'm not,
standard.
which
You're
is...
not.
You're not wearing a t-shirt?
Freudian slip. I'm not wearing one of my own t-shirts.
I've got a few of your t-shirts in my bag though,
Yep.
ready to put on at any moment.
Yep.
Should we need to up the?
It's not
up the ratio?
bribery.
I hope that's all the time. Emergency girls.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
top
Emergency
seat.
girls on top seats. What was it like the first time you saw one in the wild from someone you hadn't, you didn't know personally?
I think I mean, this is going to sound really, like my ego is huge. I mean, it wasn't in the actual world as in I was in the world with them.
Yeah.
But it was Tracy Letts.
Oh, wow.
And it was a photograph from TIFF in 2017 from
That's
Ladybird.
Toronto International Film Festival.
Yeah. But in the actual real world, sort of less grand, I was in Walthamstow Central Tube Station and I saw an Andrea Arnold t-shirt pass me on the escalator. And she was gone before I could sort of track her down.
I made those.
But I've seen one girl in a cinema, and I went up and said, "Oh, you're wearing a t-shirt," and I made that, and she sort of was a bit awkward. So I don't tend to do that now. I just I'm anonymous.
But that's really cool, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic thing, Girls on Top Tees.
Thank you.
I think
We're big fans.
First time I saw one in the wild was Jake wearing it, and I was like, I've seen those in the paper. And I need to know more about them. What you've got, Greta Gerwig.
I have.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
That was the one that Tracy Letts wore, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah.
So, guys, we're here talking about Hard Eight, which is your choice, Jake. It was. Can you tell us why you chose it and give us a 2-minute synopsis?
I chose Hard Eight because it's Paul Thomas Anderson's first film. People will have heard of his films Phantom Thread, There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, Inherent Vice, The Master, Punch Drunk Love, huge films that are insanely well regarded and very popular. He's actually just released a new film on Netflix as well.
And what's that called?
It's called Anima. It's only 12 minutes long. Here I am again going for the short films. I've just got to keep my job somehow. But Hard Eight had a bit of like production issues and got stuck in post hell, and it kind of got forgotten about once Boogie Nights came out, because Boogie Nights almost felt like this grand entrance, and Hard Eight got forgotten. And Hard Eight is the story of a young man called John, played by John C. Reilly, who is down on his luck in Reno. He just needs to get $6,000 together so that he can bury his mum. And an older gentleman called Sydney, who is well versed in the ways of gambling, shows him the ways of how he can secure that money through various means in Las Vegas. And then it's quite a freewheeling story. There's not too much of a plot to it. And we just kind of get to follow Sydney and John and the people that they meet along the way through their antics around the neon of Vegas.
Was it actually Vegas? Was it Reno? And
it crosses a few different places, but Reno is where we begin.
Yeah. Helen, what were your thoughts on Hard Eight?
So I had no idea that this film existed.
Yeah.
I don't quite know.
Neither did I.
Why? And kind of always assumed that maybe Boogie Nights was the first one, but I was wrong.
Which would have been actually insane for your first film to be Boogie Nights.
This is insane that this is his first one.
It's just the fact, or the whole cast he has in Boogie Nights, and it's such a confident film and it's so polished. You're like, you see it more and more now that the first films that people have out are outstanding, but back then it's like, dude, really? You absolute bastard. But sorry.
I had no idea that this existed, and it's really interesting seeing Gwyneth Paltrow in a film like this, being quite interesting and being really good, which she doesn't really tend to do much these days. I'm not really a fan of her other
I was
projects.
Thinking it.
Which
you were thinking you weren't a fan?
I was thinking this film is Paltrow during the time where she was that sort of very cool,
really sparkly,
but also this sort of something dark within, sort of iconic Paltrow.
Was it her first feature then as well?
I'm not sure if it's her first feature, but I get what you mean about her in this. Like looking at what she's doing now, I mean, actually Goop, but the most recent thing that I actually saw her in was her appearance in The Chef Show, where she doesn't remember that she's in a Spider-Man film and has to be corrected about that. I think that shows that she's kind of just doing projects that she's contracted for, and it's really nice to go back to see the early part of someone's career where they are kind of flexing their muscles, figuring out who they are as a performer. And in this, she's quite shabby. She kind of, it's a role that fits her skinny frame and fits those big eyes. It's a shame that we don't see more of her doing this kind of thing.
Well, this came out after Seven, which is helped to place it for most people in Gwyneth's canon. And what else came out this? I mean, you must like Gwyneth and Helen in Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes, I think she's great in that.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Sort of, I think you could put those two performances, sort of, you could almost couple them together.
Yeah. I know this is an audio medium, but you can rely that on a fancy dress night for Wes Anderson, Louis will be going as Gwyneth
Margot.
in Royal Tenenbaums.
How did you do
Excellent.
the wooden finger?
I actually didn't realise that was a thing. So I just had my regular fingers. Because, this did actually happen. I mean, it's quite difficult to find a floor-length fur coat.
Yeah, but you've got the hair.
I did have the fake cigarette as well.
That's all you need.
I was I pretended to smoke all evening.
Yeah,
And lots of eyeliner as well.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Sliding Doors as well. That's an early kind of Gwyneth role that kind of divides people. And I think that was my first film I saw of hers, and I thought she was English at the time, but then revisiting it, I'm like, that's such a bad hammy.
I don't think you were the only one.
No, I think was Shakespeare in Love. Did she have a British accent in that? Did she put one?
I couldn't tell you. I can't say I've
We've all looked
revisited
to you as if
Shakespeare
you're
in
the
Love
knowledge.
for a long time.
I actually thought to myself, I should rewatch that recently.
Really? Should you?
Yeah, because it's got what's his name? Not Ray Fiennes.
Joseph.
Jonathan Rhys.
Yeah.
Joe Fiennes.
Joe Fiennes.
Joe Fiennes.
Yeah.
Is that just because you like The Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah, I sort of wanted to see what he's like, when he's not an evil.
Commander.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, Louisa, of Hard Eight?
I didn't find it, and I know that's quite a lame thing to say. I didn't find it an easy watch.
Sure.
We
think
did watch this separately, and as it started, you texted me saying, "Oh, this is such a boy film."
Yeah, it did seem to me to be quite a boyish. It's not something that I would watch of my own accord. I don't think I would have watched it if I wasn't coming on this podcast.
But but you have watched and really liked all the other Paul Thomas Anderson films that you've seen.
Yes, I think this is my least favourite.
Oh,
I
really?
think because this is sort of I think it's probably the smallest in terms of plot and length.
Yeah,
I think
Punch Drunk Love is
shorter.
And I didn't like that either.
No, that's true. But then you do like Phantom Thread, which is another short one.
Yeah,
But that's like kind of a
everyone
lush,
likes Phantom
different beast.
Thread.
And you aren't really into like crime stuff or anything.
No,
like
I'm
that,
not a sort of
gangstery.
neo-noir thrillery type.
But you did grow into it.
You're really trying to...
I am, yeah.
Trying to boost up
just
her scores.
because I picked this,
Sure.
and so I'm trying to boost my currency.
We do get some like defensive scoring and
Yes, and sometimes we feel maybe we need to offer some kind of counselling after our guests have been
Yeah.
on, just to say it is okay.
It's okay.
I enjoyed it as a sort of character study.
sure.
But beyond that, it was a tough watch for me. Just in terms of themes, and not tough as in, traumatic, but just it was not a particularly enjoyable experience.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of viewing it, because what I like about it is that there isn't much to grip onto in terms of plot to get. This is coming pretty hot off the heels off of Pulp Fiction as well, and people are seeing that like nighttime neo-noir crime 90s feel, and they've come off of the high energy like ensemble feel of a Tarantino, and then you go into a Paul Thomas Anderson film, which I say is they are a lusher thing. Like you can really ease into their world. Whereas Tarantino, like, as much as people are enjoying them, he's quite a brutish filmmaker, and he's kind of slapping you in the face all the time. And it's interesting to have a crime film set in Vegas, which is all about lights and noise, and it's actually surprisingly relaxing. It's quite chill for a film about gambling in Nevada.
Because it is kind of the way the whole kind of setup is. Philip Baker Hall comes across John C. Reilly, and it seems just to be helping him out for the good of his own heart. We find out a bit later on. There's a bit of guilt behind why he decides to help him out. But then there's just a bit of a meandering storyline, and when you compare this to his other outputs, there is kind of a marked difference in cinematography style, as lushness. I don't know what kind of film stock this was shot on, but it's nowhere near as polished as Boogie Nights, which will be his next one. So I'd be quite interested to see what, if he was to redo this, what would it look like, and and how would it kind of play out? Because other than how it looks, I think he pretty much must have been able to do everything he wanted.
Well, it's interesting because Roger Elswit is the cinematographer
Right.
who would shoot Boogie Nights
Sure.
and would shoot There Will Be Blood and go all the way up his career until Phantom Thread, when he decided to
When he
shoot
shot it himself, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you do see some of like what would be in the DNA of Boogie Nights.
There's some like tracking shots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like these rooms full of characters filled with neon lights and cutting through the kind of noise of a scenario like the nightclub at the start of Boogie Nights by using the camera to focus in on characters. And that is here, but it is also quite plain at points. Whereas something like There Will Be Blood or Phantom Thread, it's like screenshot after screenshot.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
And Boogie Nights kind of has at times that a little just soap opera whacker camera there just to get what we need.
How does this rank for you, Helen, in the Paul Thomas Anderson realm?
So I was just thinking, so I probably would have said that I was a Paul Thomas Anderson fan, but having watched this, I don't know if I am. Because
So you're on the Louisa side of
well,
things.
I was looking at the films he has done, and out of that list, I only really, really, really like Boogie Nights and Magnolia. I haven't seen Inherent Vice yet, and I haven't seen Phantom Thread. And I got quite irritated with The Master. I didn't really get on with that, and I didn't make it all the way through yet, through There Will Be Blood. So I'm wondering whether I am a fan or not.
So what would you thought on Punch Drunk Love? Sorry,
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I can't really remember that much about it. It's got Adam Sandler in it,
Yep.
which is a big thing that I made it all the way through. But I can remember not hating it.
Sure.
So I think I'd have to revisit that one.
As everyone, so I've not seen all of Paul Thomas Anderson's, all of his films, and I think there is a kind of, I've only seen Boogie Nights once, for example, or maybe I've only seen them once, but things like Inherent Vice and The Master just seem like a bit oppressive to even for me to get started. The whole like 3 hours to The Master, and it's shot in 70mm film, and I didn't see it at the cinema, so I'm like, do I want to watch it on my TV screen? Is that going to convey what he's trying to get through? And Inherent Vice, everyone just kind of says the trailers didn't actually make out to be the film. But I love There Will Be Blood. I thought Punch Drunk Love was awesome. So and I wasn't that big a fan of Magnolia. I know lots of people love it to bits.
See, I really, really loved that.
Yeah.
Well, and you only saw that for the first time this year, and you were lucky enough to actually watch it for the first time in a cinema as well, which must have been great.
Yeah. it
Magnolia.
really was. Yeah. Because I wouldn't really call myself a Paul Thomas Anderson fan. But then also, I find it difficult to sort of rectify the Paul Thomas Anderson of Magnolia with Phantom Thread. It's all so different. Inherent Vice is very different.
Yeah.
Which sort of makes me like him even more because he's got lots of strings to
Chameleonic in
his...
a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Magnolia is just 3 hours of people screaming, and it's like a workout, and you come out of it and you do feel totally drained. And Phantom Thread is the polar opposite of that. It's so easy to watch. You could fall asleep to it, and I actually don't think he'd mind if you did.
No,
You shouldn't fall asleep to it.
No, but you could.
Phantom Thread for me, I really, really enjoyed that, and it's one of the films where I kind of think, how did you actually even make this idea, and why have you made it? How have you made it so well?
And it's
Because
so beautiful.
It sounds like such a boring concept.
Well, it came from Paul Thomas Anderson genuinely being ill in bed, and Maya Rudolph, his wife, was having to bring him food and drink and help him out. And then he suddenly realized, oh, you have all the power. And then went off to Ireland to write a script with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
And they made up this cartoon name until they figured out what the real character was called. They were like, what if we called him Reynolds Woodcock for a laugh? And then eventually they ran through it so much, they were like, oh, yeah, that's it.
That could only ever have been his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just in case you're wondering what we're doing, we're staring at the IMDb list of Paul Thomas Anderson.
He's made a lot of things, hasn't he?
Well, there's a lot of music videos.
Yeah,
in it.
so I mean, I'm obviously like his Radiohead videos and some of the other stuff that he's done. Obviously, Joanna Newsom and
Haim
and Fiona Apple as well. So yeah,
Hasn't he worked with Haim because they grew up on the same street? Or have I made that up?
No, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Or like right in the same area.
Yeah.
But that's like a lot of his stuff just goes back to making things with people that you know and people you're friends with. Like his great collaborator, Philip Seymour Hoffman, is there throughout. from Hard 8 up until his death. Even if it's in like a small role, like here, it's a one scene, or in Punch Drunk Love, it's a minor character, or even like The Master, where it's a huge role. And he just goes back to the people that he likes, the locations that he likes as well. Like Philip Baker Hall comes up again in Magnolia, and John C. Reilly through there in Boogie Nights too. And I would love to be at a Paul Thomas Anderson house party.
Dinner party.
Just imagine who's there. Yeah.
Well, let's look at this first film. I'm not sure where John C. Reilly was at the time. Samuel L. Jackson was post Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Still in post Pulp Fiction, but was it shot before Pulp Fiction?
No. It would have been shot afterwards. So Paul Thomas Anderson made a short called Cigarettes and Coffee. Then that helped get him into the filmmakers lab at Sundance.
Is that different to Coffee and Cigarettes, which is Jim Jarmusch?
It is.
Oh, right, okay.
And
cheeky.
So he gets into this lab at Sundance.
Yeah.
And the diner scene between Sydney and John, our main characters here, that opens this film, the genesis of that is within that thing that he made with Sundance.
Right.
And that gradually gets expanded into Hard 8, and as does the Philip Baker Hall role. And he gets to make this feature and bring together Samuel L. Jackson and these amazing people. And he's 25.
This is something you mention pretty much like once every 2 weeks.
Yeah. How old someone is.
He's 25.
The fact that he made all this stuff by the time he was 25. And I think you're feeling now pretty inadequate.
Yeah,
now you're
really
26.
And
you haven't made Magnolia.
Well, at 26, he made Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
And he makes Magnolia when he's 28 and 29.
I'm 40 next year, so what kind of hope is that for me?
You know,
Exactly,
Woody Allen made Annie Hall at 40,
But
didn't
he'd made other films before that.
Yeah, he had.
We might as well just give up,
I
maybe.
think, John, cheers, I'll just...
Happy birthday, give up now.
OD and some heroin. But I always... my main kind of benchmark is Ricky Gervais. He didn't make The Office until he was 40-something.
Yeah.
And
So you've got a couple of years.
He hadn't done much before that, from what I remember.
Did you have your phase of being in a new romantic band, though?
I played guitar a bit, but not in bands, and I've played at people's weddings. So that'll be it. There won't be anything of me. Siona Dancing was his new wave romantic. I don't know why I know that. I wasn't in a new romantic band at all.
There's still time, though.
There's still time, but that'll be harking back to the 80s, like a revival. So Phil, I don't know much about Philip Baker Hall. Outside, I'm trying to place him.
So he played Nixon in a film in the 80s, and then that kind of got relegated into obscurity. He played a quite famous character in Seinfeld, but he was someone that Paul Thomas Anderson just really liked.
Yeah,
and he when you watch the film and you see him in Magnolia, he's got an amazing face.
Yeah, it really does.
Like even in his younger years, he looks like he's lived 10 lives already. Like some of those wrinkles are cavernous. They're amazing. You get lost in it. And there are these close-ups in Hard 8 where you could just pause it and just watch him. It's quite hypnotic. And he's not an extremely handsome man or anything like that. He's just got one. He's like, oh gosh, I don't know who to, like Pete Postlethwaite or something. He's just got such an interesting face. Yeah.
Because he wouldn't typically be a leading person in a film, which is what I'm quite surprised looking at the rest of the cast. Gwyneth, Samuel, John C. Reilly's perhaps the least famous out of those, but he's still got, a lot of notoriety behind him. I'm surprised that he hasn't done more out of this, because he carried the film really well, I thought. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of the hard-nosed guy, but he wasn't a tough guy. He knew how to carry himself. He knew what to do when things needed to be done, but he wasn't an out-and-out tough guy.
I think it's because it's such a subdued role, and that's why it's such a clever performance, because you understand like that this man has seen the world and he knows how it works, and in the face of extreme danger at a certain point in the film, he's so calm about it, and that will trick people into thinking that this is an undramatic performance, but it's actually a really sharp one. And it's far more interesting than any normal gangster performance, really, that's all shootouts and shouting. And that's why I really love it. And that's why I think it's like the original name of the film before the studio got involved was Sydney, the name of the character. And that's what it should be, because it's just so great to follow him around for these 2 hours.
When it first started, and he's teaching John C. Reilly's character how to make the most of 150 books. I was taking notes. Like, okay, that sounds quite good.
It is an amazing scheme, isn't it?
But also I'm like, you can't do that.
No, it is. Like that totally happened, and like Paul Thomas, if you look it up online, like Paul Thomas Anderson knows that. Like it's just so based on stuff that he learned. He grew up in the San Fernando Valley, lots of people going in and out to Vegas, and just picked up all these things.
But you can't do that now. You surely can't.
No, I doubt you can now. This film ruined it.
Damn it, for all these scammers.
Yeah.
Helen, PSH.
Oh yes, I've got that written down actually. PSH. I mean, he's great in every film that he's in.
Even like Along Came Polly.
I think he's really funny in that film. He makes it. Yeah, I think every time you watch a film with him in, whether it's an older one or a more recent one, you just realise, how talented he was, and he just brings so much to the screen, even though he's only in it for this little bit. Like now,
I think he almost steals the show in this.
Yeah,
he's so good.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the scenes contrasting. Philip Seymour Hoffman never looks that young, but he's taking the fun out. He's taking a piss out of Philip Baker Hall and saying, "Oh, come on, old man," and like riling him, and those two facing off against each other, and the way the camera cuts back between them both. It's such a nice kind of stark scene, and this is one of those points, as you're saying, Jake, where you see Philip Baker Hall just being kind of demure and like he kind of knows exactly what he wants to do, and I find it's actually out of character when he goes, "Oh fuck it, I'm going to put $2,000 in hard eight," and you can kind of tell he's in turmoil when he does that. Yeah, he's rattled by PSH.
It's so good. And he's in it. It's less than 5 minutes.
It is.
He's just brilliant. But it's one of those few spikes of energy in the film as well. And because he just comes in, and he's actually kind of almost out of character for him to be such a kind of shouty, abrasive guy as well. But then at the end of this brief scene, you just see him drop that pretense and kind of get into the wallow of losing that money and adopt that Philip Seymour Hoffman character that we've seen him perform in a lot more work as well.
I saw just on the tube today, I saw someone next to me on their phone was watching one of the later Hunger Games films, which is when PSH died. And it was a scene with Plutarch Havensby, and I was just like, oh shit, he's dead, isn't he? I was like, fuck. Because he probably was. I think the last two Hunger Games films were terribly boring, but him being in them was one of the better features of it.
Yeah.
Should we go to the scores, guys?
Let's head over to the scores. Welcome to the spreadsheet of dreams.
It's a very nice spreadsheet. Well done.
Thank you.
How does this compare? Do you have spreadsheets for Girls on Top tees?
I do, yeah, but I tend to colour code. So we're missing some colours on this.
People have commented on that. Maybe we can do something
Jazz
better.
it up maybe.
Yeah.
But I also just can't really do spreadsheets. I can do sort of the most basic. I just figured out how you like not just have to press add. Like you can use the sum thing.
Yeah.
So that's really revolutionised my spreadsheeting journey.
Well, can give you some tips later on.
Yes.
Can we do a spreadsheets podcast? I love a sheet.
That sounds like such a popular idea. It must be a podcast for it already. Well, let's do some searching on that podcasts.
Yeah.
If not, let's start it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Our scores, they're all out of 5. You can have decimal places. The lowest you can go is 0. And we'll start with the recommendability with you, Jake, as you pick this film.
Yeah, for me, this is a straightforward. I think you can really just... I think this is a safe bet because I think you can... has elements of a dad film,
Yeah.
like Father's Day DVD, safe,
right?
Like,
maybe like brother-in-law.
Yep,
Christmas present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you have to do a gift that's like a bit more cultured or a recommendation that's going to impress people, like maybe someone needs you to go on their podcast and you're trying to think of something clever, and you think, maybe like the first film from a guy that people have heard of, and they don't really know the film. That's why it's a good one to recommend, because it makes you sound more impressive than you really are.
How did you even find this on Netflix? Because it's one of those things where...
It's pretty buried on there, isn't it?
Well, it's just been on my list.
Okay. So you search for it every now and again, or it pops up for you?
I think it was one of the... Because on your list, like things come and go based on like when the right's going up and down there, and I'd forgotten it was on there.
Right.
And I think genuinely it had gone from the list, and then because I added it years ago,
Sure,
never got around to watching it.
Oh, so this is like you added it when you probably first got Netflix.
Yeah,
just like searching around for films that, oh, I wonder if this is on there. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Add to list.
There we are. And then don't notice it for a while, and then like that list refresh happens or rights get updated, and there it is. And it's a wonderful film.
Louisa, your recommendability score?
Well, I feel like I wouldn't recommend this to people in my general circle. Jake, I'm so sorry. Maybe 2.5.
Sure.
I'd recommend it to Jake.
It is my kind of film.
We could just recommend it to each other over and over again.
I really like kind of slow films, particularly about like processes that are also about dads.
Because the thing is, I love slow films.
Yeah.
But this just,
Well, I actually do think the film kind of loses. It's not a 5 because I think like the final third where it actually gets into the plot of it, of why things are happening.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
You just like the bit beforehand where, just like the character bits.
Yeah,
yeah,
and just figuring out how the world works.
The talking bits, yeah. Helen, your recommendability score?
So not quite as high as you, Jake, or as low as you, Louisa. I'm going to go for a 3. I think this is definitely, if you haven't seen it and you're a PTA fan, you need to watch it for completion, so you can have 100% completion on that.
But that means I have to watch Inherent Vice and The Master.
Yeah, it does.
It's a great
film. You do get 100%.
Go for The Master over Inherent Vice.
Right. But still, it's 3 and a bit hours, isn't it?
Yeah. Although Inherent Vice...
No, Inherent Vice is a beast. That's like 2:30.
But you also
Master's
have...
shorter.
But you have Joanna Newsom narrating, and so you've got her great voice that's sort of between...
It's really high.
Yeah, an old woman and also a young...
baby.
Infant girl, yeah.
In The Master?
No, in Inherent Vice.
Okay.
Yeah. So watch it for that alone.
So it's I think it's for completists only. I mean, if you said to me, should you watch Magnolia, I'd be like, 5, you have to watch that. Whereas this, I'd be like, I mean, you watch it for Philip Seymour Hoffman and Gwyneth Paltrow in younger, more interesting roles, but I didn't really get into it at all, and I did find it a little bit of a slog personally. So a 3.
I'm gonna go for 3.5. I'm glad you brought it to us because it's one that I don't know why I didn't know it existed.
I don't know why either.
It's bizarre because he hasn't done that many films that the early ones go into obscurity, and it's so easy to say, the film he did before Boogie Nights. I'm giving it a 3.5 because I think I'd still watch it. I haven't watched Magnolia. I think I maybe only watched it once, and I don't think I'd watch it again readily just because the running time just seems oppressive.
It's really good though.
I'm sure it is.
Like get up early on a
Amy
Sunday.
Mann's soundtrack.
It's still no.
You've had Ella on the podcast before, haven't you? Ella Kemp.
Yes.
She famously watched Magnolia for the first time, and then when it finished, went straight back and watched it again.
Yes, that's 6 hours in one day.
So she's
So I maybe need to carve it out again.
I've got it on DVD if you want to borrow it. I've got the double disc version.
Double disc version. Oh my god! Is this when like DVDs had 2 sides?
No, it's just got 2 discs.
Oh, my Goodfellas DVD did that.
Yeah.
Turn it over in the middle of a film.
That was so irritating. I was like, why would you want DVDs? You have to. I'm good with my VHS, my 4-hour VHS. 3.5, and I would recommend it to people, and I would recommend it to cinephiles particularly, and anyone who's seen any Paul Thomas Anderson film and liked it, whether it's Punch Drunk to Phantom Thread. Just ask them if they've seen it and like go, it's on Netflix. Have a go. I did enjoy it.
And it's not too long as well.
No, it's not.
An hour 42.
Yeah.
An hour 42.
Great.
Repeat viewing score, Jake.
I'd go with another 4. I think it really warrants it, but then it depends what you want to get out of a repeat viewing. I don't think you're not going to glean much more of the plot. It's not like watching a Christopher Nolan film where you pick up, that's why that happened, or that foreshadowing, or things like that. I don't think that's what it's there for. Going back to Studio Ghibli, where we started this episode, like My Neighbor Totoro, which is a really lovely film to just be in, and you watch it over and over again just for the feeling of it. And that's why I really like Hard 8. One of the first DVDs I ever got was Ocean's 11, another film about gambling. Oh God, this horrible realization. But that was another film that is, in a way, the polar opposite of this, because it's glitz and glamour and it's music and it's loud, but it's just full of character and life that I want to surround myself with.
So you want to just go and revisit the world of Hard 8 every now and again?
Yeah.
Strange.
It's a bit dark.
Yeah.
It is dark.
There are so many other films that are much nicer to be immersed in.
But it's so nice that they're such warm, caring characters within this sleazy world. And that's what gives it so much life and light. And that's why I would go back to it.
Louisa?
Maybe a bit higher. Maybe let's go 3. Maybe, just but thinking myself, sure. I might go back and watch it and see if, second time's a charm.
Sure. Maybe that's what I need to do with Magnolia.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think maybe if I sat down in the morning rather than late at night. And
but Magnolia does have the Nolan-y plot stuff as well, where it's only a few goes deep in Magnolia that you realise, that's how that person is connected to that.
You could watch Magnolia, over and over again.
Yeah.
But I think Hard 8 you would... Yeah, I couldn't watch it 8 times.
Helen?
I think I would definitely struggle to watch this again, and I don't... a 1. I think. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
I know, sorry.
That's a harsh dip from 3 to 1.
It's interesting seeing how people... I don't know, get not defensive, but embarrassed sometimes about the films. I don't think you're embarrassed. You're still quite happy that you chose it.
It's something I like personal.
The film.
But I really don't like to dislike films. So this is quite painful for me.
Yeah.
Well, there's some early films that we had on here that you might want to avoid.
We can give you the list of what to avoid.
Okay.
I'm going to go for... I'm not sure I'm going to watch it much. And I just don't... I don't know. Maybe I don't have an inherent rewatchability for Paul Thomas Anderson.
If you already watched it twice, though.
Yeah, I watched it twice, but that's for a different reason. I'm going to go for 2. 2.1. I wouldn't be disappointed to put it on again. If my wife came in and she was watching it, I'd be like, I'll join you for the rest of it.
But would you be on your phone during?
I'd probably do other stuff. I'd be quite happy. This would be one of those films where the talking's more important a lot of the time than what's going on the screen. So I'd be quite happily doing some chores in the lounge.
In a way, that's quite nice, because I think that goes back to the idea of it being a comfort film that you can just whack it on, join it.
It's not comforting, though.
It is.
You're really weird. I'm seeing a whole new side to you.
There's a difference between this and the warm, cuddly Totoro.
Maybe Totoro just needed a gun, and then that would have really sorted it out.
Terrible.
Small
and some
screen
gambling.
Score.
Yeah, I think this is where I would lower mine. I think.
Oh, really?
I wish I could have seen this at the cinema.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't need to see this on a big screen. You could watch it on your phone on the tube.
You could. You absolutely could, and that would be fine. I'm firmly pro people watching stuff on their phones, so I'll keep the score in the positive,
Helen,
3.
calm down.
But I wish I could watch this in a cinema, and I think it would be an even more rich experience for it because of how it's been photographed.
It would be more immersive.
Those Vegas lights, they're hypnotizing.
But there's not much time spent in the Vegas kind of milieu, is there? It's more because even the casino
it's more
scenes
the
aren't...
slightly sad side of casinos as well, rather than Scorsese's casino.
Because what was that game they were playing when they were in Reno? I've never heard of it before. This film. Where you have to pick a number, and then which is when you first see Gwyneth Paltrow.
I don't know the name.
So that seemed like such an odd, random game. You're sitting at your table. Gwyneth says, "Do you want to play this round?" And you say yes, 23. And then 5 minutes later, you find out whether you win. That sounds
some variant of bingo.
Exactly. Where you just have to pick one number. But that sounds like such a sad. Looks like such a sad game.
Zero knowledge of gambling and card games and things. I just don't really know.
And I have no craps. I don't know how that game ever works. So what score are you giving this for small screen?
3.
3. When you said, okay, lower it for screen. Sure. Louisa?
I'll give it a 5.
No interest in watching this in the cinema?
I feel like maybe I'd enjoy it more in the cinema because I couldn't leave. Yeah, and it's just bigger, so you can't look away, and it's easier to focus.
Sure.
Whereas when I watched it on my laptop, I was very much thinking like a snack, or pause it and look at the time.
What you mean, see how much time's left? Oh my god! 28 minutes.
So maybe I shouldn't give it such a high small screen. Maybe let's go a 2. Okay, let's go 2.
No, well, I mean 5 is fine.
At this point, it's all become meaningless for this film for me.
Helen,
is the Prince Charles not ever done a
They have, yeah.
They
did a retrospective, yeah.
That's where I saw Magnolia, and it was amazing.
Okay, so you didn't get to see it then?
Sadly not, no. But yeah, I'm sure it will roll around again. They'll always sell tickets for Paul Thomas Anderson films.
Would that be, because I did recently like a Stallone-a-thon. Would you do a Paul Thomas Anderson-a-thon?
No.
Anderson-a-thon? No.
I imagine you'd come out needing lots of hugs.
Hugs and like somewhere to lie down.
Yeah. You'd have such a headache after. Yeah. Oh no, you couldn't.
I'm not into those marathons.
No, neither.
Helen.
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it a 5. I think it works fine on your TV screen, and I think we didn't even know it existed. And you might be a Paul Thomas Anderson fan sitting there listening, going, "I didn't know it was on Netflix, and that's the only one I've never ever seen." And it's on Netflix, and you can watch it. And this is one of the like things about Netflix is you'll discover there is like the first film by your favorite director on there, and I think it works fine for small screens.
Yeah, I'm happy with it being on small screen. I don't think I would have wanted to see it in a cinema, so 5 compared to Phantom Thread, which is again I still just find it bizarre. It's him, right? Yeah. So it's Paul Thomas Anderson and your man who did Roma. He's
Alfonso Cuarón.
Yeah, and also Cary Fukunaga. Just directors who just think, yeah, I'll do the cinematography for my latest films and smash it out of the park. Bastards.
There's still time to change your career.
I think I'm set. I'm happy. Okay. I'm happy. I'm all right. It takes a long time to get to their kind of level. Yeah. Engagement score, Jake.
Well, as you know, I get firmly wrapped up in this one, and I get locked into the world of it. And so, I'll probably go back to where I started with a 4. Yeah.
Louisa?
I'll give it 2 just for Gwyneth.
Helen?
I'm going to give it a 3. As I said before, I did struggle a little bit with this, the pace and the darkness. And I don't know, I just didn't really connect with the characters either, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, 3.
I'm going to go for 4.28. 4.28.
Very specific.
Yeah. 4.28. I think the first time I watched it, I was like, generally really enjoyed everything that happened. There's a few kind of missteps, which for me kind of takes me out of it a bit later on, such as suddenly Gwyneth's character and John C. Reilly's character get married, and there's a bit of stupidness happens in the motel room. You're like,
and their relationship is so awkward.
Yeah, so it's such a weird kind of setup. Yeah, so it's that kind of bit happens, and then suddenly Samuel L. Jackson turns out to be a proper bad guy, and you're like, I think if it was just them mooing around Vegas and being like just chilling out and maybe doing a few cons and stuff like that, that would have been a bit more enticing for me. But it loses points because it threw me out of the film towards the end of it, I think. So yeah, 4.28, and that gives us an overall score of 3.24250.
Is that good or is that bad?
That's all right. That's all right.
Anything over 3 is pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Great. I'm glad that I put my 4s in there. We could have
been dive bombed a bit more.
Yeah.
Defensive scoring. Guys, can you? Oh yeah, we need to go to Twitter.
Yeah.
Before we record each film, we always go to Twitter. In this case, is saying we're reviewing Hard 8 #Hard8 with Jake Cunningham and Girls on Tops Tees. Have you seen it? Give us your thoughts for an on-air shout out on Flixwatcher. Asking for a rating and a quick review. Jake, do you want to read out the first one?
Yeah, so Liam Dempsey has said it's a very strong and compact debut feature. It may not have the grandeur of Anderson's later work, but it has a superb central trio of acting performances and a arresting, sharp script. And I would firmly agree. Thank you, Liam.
Should have got Liam on the podcast instead of me to talk about this.
Liam gives it 4 stars.
Me and Liam are doing our own spin-off podcast exclusively about Hard 8.
Good.
Well, you may. Have you met Liam?
No, I haven't.
Well, Liam is from Spotlight podcast, and he has been to a couple of the. If you're a film podcaster in London, we have these meetups, so do get in touch with us.
Liam, if you're listening, I'm watching The Next Generation for the first time, and I need people to talk to about it. So get
he'll
in
be
touch.
all over that.
Yes,
all over
definitely.
Please.
Yeah, we can connect you.
Louisa, can you take the next review?
Tasteless Podcast is very much on my wavelength and says this is one of the movies I keep an eye out for in new stores because of Gwyneth, but I've yet to see it. I need to get on it.
Not quite a review.
No. But Tasteless, if you're in the UK, it's certainly on Netflix at the moment. So, yeah, go and watch it. Right. Thank you very much. Can you sign off, guys, by letting everyone who's listening know where they can find you online and say bye?
Bye. Thanks for having me,
sure.
guys. You can find Girls on Tops on all social media platforms, and we're Girls on Tops Tees.
And you can buy the T-shirts
yes,
from there
of course,
as well.
yeah. You can buy them as well. We have an Etsy store, and that's Girls on Tops Tees as well.
Fantastic.
I'm on Twitter, that's Jake H. Cunningham, and if you like Studio Ghibli and you want to listen to people talk about it, you can listen to the Ghibliotheque podcast. That's with a TH for tech.
How else is...
People do it without the H.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have thought the problem would be the K versus QUE at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled to write it down, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Next time, as I said, we're looking for new shows.
Just an easier to spell word.
But it's bibliothèque as in like the French word for library.
Yeah, I know, that's what it is. And it's a library because we go through the films. Yeah. That's the plan.
Yes, it's great. It's a
name.
great name.
Yeah,
I just can't spell it. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy listening to Flixwatcher podcast? Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcasts. Why not leave us your 5-star review on iTunes and follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter.
Thank you, Rachel Jordan, for editing this podcast and making it sound so smooth and slick and sweet. And thank you very much to Mighty People for the tunes that you all are enjoying now.